Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Chris Mitchell, Solution Engineer here with Inflow CX, and I'm going to be leading our webinar today talking about the Mitel end-of-life hardware for 2023. If you haven't had a chance to register for some of our other webinars, we're getting ready to post all of our September webinars, so we do have a Genesis Architect Part 1 coming up, where we're on building an auto attendant, and there'll be a bunch more kind of in the Genesis Architect series coming up as well. Quick, what's on the agenda for today? We're going to be I'll talk real quick on who is Inflow CX if you're new to our webinar series, and then I'll jump right in talking about the Mitel end-of-life hardware for 2023, and then what are the options, moving forward on, what to remove that hardware or upgrade that hardware from the system. If you do have questions as we're going through this today, feel free to put them in the question and answer section of the webinar. I'll try to answer them as I go. If there's something I need to research, then I'll follow up with you via email after the webinar. All right, so who's Inflow CX? We're a provider of strategic advisory, deployment, management, managed services. We do contact center, customer experience, and unified communication. So, a lot of the customers, know us from, long-time support of their short-tail Mitel system, and we've moved into the contact center space and providing, solutions around all kinds of different UC, customer experience and contact center. We moved into workforce management, workforce optimization, AI automation, and analytics, all those kind of customer engagement, services and technologies now. We have vendor neutral technology evaluation, labor strategy, and labor strategies and operational effectiveness, kind of pieces of our business now that we never, we didn't have when we first started. So as we've kind of grown as a company, we have over 85 employees, over 1,000 customers, over 500 contact center deployments, 1,000 UC deployments, and then 300 contact center engagements. So we're really here to offer all kinds of different services, to meet customers' needs, anything that, and really anything that has to do with the customer experience or in customer engagement. Some of our accolades, for some in products that we support. So you have 5.9 Sales Partner of the Year, Genesis Implementation Partner of the Year, Zoom and Ring Central certified, and NICE CX1 certified implementation partners. So these are all, these are a handful of our customers spanning all kinds of, sizes, industries and everything like that. So I'm sure you'll see some names on here that you recognize. And the products that we work with and we support, like I said, obviously, Mitel and everything like that. But from a UC perspective on the bottom, we also do Ring Central, Zoom, Fuse, 8x8. We'll do integrations with Teams. We don't do any Teams deployments, but we can do integrations with Teams. On the top, we have our contact center platforms that we work with: Genesis, 5.9, NICE, UJet, all the big players out there. And then everything kind of in the middle is the ecosystem. They work with either the contact center or the UC products on the top or bottom. So if there's a need, from a customer experience standpoint, we have a solution that we can help implement, research, and a lot of times support for customers as well. All right. Well, the reason all of you are here today. So, Mitel end-of-life hardware. So they've been posting end-of-life updates and stuff like this for a number of years. They delayed some of the end-of-life hardware. I have attached to the chat for this on the webinar the official PDF release from Mitel. So if you have if you want to pull that, you could download that PDF document. Kind of highlight some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. In that PDF as well. Okay, so on the right-hand side here, this is the Mitel Connect or Mitel 14.2. I just took a snippet out of that PDF document. So 14.2 software, is already into support. They're not posting a whole bunch of updates and everything in there. The full width SG switches, they were end of life, back in 2017. So those are kind of the older ones as far as the 14.2 goes. But the new ones, that are coming up for end of life next June. So you have an SG24A. That's a full width analog switch. That's being end of life. Then all of the half width SG switches. So that would be SG30, SG50, SG90, 50V, 90V, T1K, 220 T1, and 220 T1A. So those are all of the switch models that are all the half-width switch models that are all being end of life next year. So what does that mean? That means as of June 30th, 2023, those switch models will be dropped from support, which means you won't get warranty coverage on them. We can't open up support cases on them, and we can no longer do software updates on the system if any of those switches are connected to the system. So there'll be no more firmware available in future Connect builds past that date. So as of June 30th, you can still have those switches in your system, but you will not be able to do any software updates beyond there, and you could still open up support cases on your system, just not on any of that on that hardware. The biggest question I get all the time is there any phones that are being discontinued as part of this this end of life? Answer is no. They've chosen not to end of life or into support any of like the IP230s. That's I would say tons of our customers are all running those IP230s still, but as of right now, no phones have been announced for end of life. All right, let's see. We got okay. Question-wise, we're good there. So now let's hop to the next slide. We're going to kind of talk through what are our options here. So I probably have 2 or 3 calls with customers every single week about this. Looking at switches and looking at what are our options. A lot of customers they haven't budgeted for switch replacements, and if they have, we have customers with 30 to 50 switches they have to replace. So there's virtual options. So I would say this is where most customers are leaning, is towards replacing those physical switches with virtual switches. And there's 2 types of virtual switches you can use. One being a virtual phone switch, which replaces a virtual phone switch would replace like a SG30, 50, 90, like those switches that just run physical phones. That would be a good replacement for those. Obviously, the one thing you can't replace is a switch with the virtual switches if you have analog devices. So if you have like a paging system, a fax machine, or something like that connected to a physical switch, you can't connect those to a virtual phone switch. So that we got to start figuring out, okay, do we have to have some new physical switches, or can we eliminate those analog devices so that we could then do a virtual phone switch? And the virtual phone switch gets split up in Hyper-V or VMware, and then you can register up to 1,000 phones per virtual switch. Virtual switches are licensed a little bit different than buying physical hardware, because like for virtual phone switch, I license in bundles of 1 phone, 50 phones, or 200 phones. And then I can have 1 virtual phone switch or 10 virtual phone switches. It doesn't matter how many virtual phone switches I have. I can apply those licenses across any of those virtual phone switches. So if I buy a pack of 200 virtual phone licenses, I can have those 200 applied on 1 virtual phone switch or on 10. As long as I don't exceed 200 phones registered to those switches, then I won't be a license violation. And the virtual trunk switch pretty much works, the same way. It's for SIP trunking. So if you're looking to maybe upgrade from PRI to SIP trunk, or you already have SIP trunking running on physical switches, you can upgrade to a virtual trunk switch, and you can buy those, in packs of 1, 25, or 50 licenses, and then you can, set up as many virtual trunk switches as you need to accommodate your trunking at multiple locations or something like that. The one thing to note on virtual phone and virtual trunk switches is the higher quantities that you buy them in will be bundled cheaper per phone or per trunk license. So a 200 phone pack will be cheaper per phone than a 1, or a 50 pack. Virtual trunk, if you buy a 50 pack, they'll be cheaper per trunk than a 1 pack or a 25 pack. So maybe you have sites that you can't do virtual at. We can mix and match virtual and physical trunk, virtual and physical switches. So the new physical switches that we can buy is the ST50A, 100A. So those are the 50A is a pretty much exact replacement for an SG like 50 or 30. So it's a good replacement for those. The ST100A is a good replacement for the SG90. The one thing that's really nice about the newer ST switches is that you no longer have an analog trade-off for IP phones. So those switches can handle 50 and 100 phones plus some analog resources on top of that. The ST100DA is the replacement for the 220T1 or 220T1A. So it'll handle up to 100 phones and a PRI connection connected to it. They have a couple of newer, bigger switches, the ST200 and the ST500, that don't do any analog connections. They're just bigger switches to handle large amounts of phones. And then we have the replacements for the T1K. So an ST1D is a replacement for the T1K to run your PRIs. And then they introduced a new model, the ST2D, that can actually handle 2 PRIs on one switch. And I realized that I forgot to put on there the ST24A, which is the replacement for the SG24A. So there is a replacement analog switch, and then they released an ST48A, which is a 48-port analog switch. One note: those analog switches, the 24 and 48A, they will not run any phones, and they will not run any dial tone. So they're strictly for like hospitals that need to run patient room phones. They just, and they want to run a bunch of analog phones or something like that. So those 24A and 48A do not run any analog lines or any IP phones. They're strictly analog extensions. So one note is Mitel has a ton of customers who are all looking to replace these switches at the same time right now. So almost every physical switch is on back order right now, as they're selling them as fast as Mitel can have them made, imported, in. So they're being made, they're made in China. They get brought over, everything like that, and they're selling out, almost, or they're filling back orders. So if you are looking to buy physical switches, estimate anywhere between a 3 and 6 month wait time to get those switches. That's why virtual phone and virtual trunk switches are becoming so popular as options, because so many customers are looking to replace those switches. That is taking longer, to get those switches delivered and everything like that. So, I'm working with customers and sales reps and and account managers and everything right now to help quote out and price out replacement switches. When customers get those bills, $50,000 to $100,000 in some cases for replacement switches, some customers are saying, well, maybe I should consider migrating to a cloud phone system instead of spending $100,000 on switches. So great, that is a good option. Here's RingCentral, Zoom, 8x8, or looking at Microsoft Teams possibly, or something like that. That is a common option that we're helping customers look at and figuring out, okay, is that a good fit for your business or not. And then on the very bottom here, this is a new wrinkle that just got announced a couple months ago, is that Mitel announced as part of they sold all of their cloud their cloud business, everything, to RingCentral in November of last year. And as part of that, they announced that they're going to be paring down their on-premise platforms down to one platform. From a cost perspective and support perspective, they only want to maintain one on-prem platform, and they've chosen that is not going to be the Mitel Connect platform. So they will be stopping sales of all Mitel Connect licensing and hardware at the end of 2024. So you have about a little over 2 years, right? Or not even 2 years actually. Now before the end of 2024, where they're going to stop selling all licensing and hardware. Once they stop selling that, then legally they have to support the Mitel platform, the Connect platform, for 5 years from the last sale date. So if you go out and buy a bunch of these switches in licensing right now, 2029 you'll be able to get support of the system through at least 2029. Does that mean you have to stop using the system by 2029? No, it doesn't. But they just said that's the last time the Mitel will stop supporting it from an update perspective, warranty perspectives and everything like that on the system. So that's putting a wrinkle in a lot of conversations that we're having with customers, because we're trying to be upfront with them and say, hey, I don't want you to go out and spend $100,000 on the system without you knowing that in less than 7 years, this system is going to be end of support from a Mitel perspective. There were some conversations with Mitel when they announced that to their partners and encouraging them to push it back one more year to 2025 end of sale, and then that would push it to 2030. But they haven't made an announcement on the official end of sale, if it's going to be in 2024 or 2025, but it will be announced before the end of this year, the official end of sale date from Mitel. So for our customers that I've been talking to that do want to keep a Mitel on-prem or keep an on-prem system, the My Voice Business is the Mitel platform that they're going to continue maintaining. If you've been around a long time with Mitel, it's what they used to call the Mitel 3300 platform. So they will be maintaining the My Voice Business platform and the MICC contact center platform. So for customers that want to say they are working on like a migration option to migrate from Mitel Connect over to the My Voice Business platform. They've already rolled out an option to move your Mitel ECC licensing over to the MICC licensing. They'll actually convert it over at no cost to you for customers who want to keep going on an on-prem contact center. So we're expecting them to announce something similar like that with the My Voice Business from Mitel Connect, is maybe transfer all your extension licensing over. So you don't have to rebuy the extension licensing. You would have to buy some new hardware to run, stuff like that. And then from a phone perspective, the Mitel 6900 series phones work with the Connect system. They work with My Voice Business, and they also actually now work with RingCentral, since RingCentral, Mitel partnered up on the cloud services. So the Mitel 6900 series phones is their newest line of phones. They could be used on all the Mitel platforms. One other thing to note is the 400 series phones, which was a ShoreTel, model phone before Mitel acquired them, is being worked on with RingCentral right now, and by the end of the year, the 400 series phones will be RingCentral compatible. So for customers that are considering a cloud migration, if you have any 6900 series phones or 400 series phones, those will be RingCentral compatible. So you could kind of keep your investment in the phones, and migrate to a cloud platform without having to buy additional phones, which can be a big expense for some customers. Buying phones is the big expense of a phone system. So there are some options as customers are looking to migrate to the cloud, and keep those phones. A lot of customers that are migrating to the cloud are going to soft phones instead of physical phones, so it's less of a of a deal or something like that, because they say, it's fine, we're going to go to soft phones. Or Zoom, RingCentral, a lot of them will offer promotions as well to make phones is pretty affordable. We've seen phones down down $50 or $60 a phone, whereas opposed to you're used to buying Mitel phones for a few $100s a phone, $200 or $300. So newer phones, on the cloud platforms definitely aren't as expensive as the Mitel phones as if you're used to buying in the past as well. So I think we fixed the document in the chat. So feel free, like I said, you can grab that PDF document and kind of read through it. It just talks about the hardware. That PDF does not talk about the end of sale stuff. That document won't be available till probably right till the end of the year. But as customers are looking at replacing all these switches, we're trying to be upfront and kind of get out in front of this with customers so they don't spend $100,000, on switches and not knowing if or expecting to keep those switches for the system for another 10 years or something like that. Like I said, you can keep it that long, but there won't be any support or warranty coverage past that end of support date, either being 2029 or 2030 going forward. So looking to see here if I missed any of the questions that were coming in. I think I answered all of them. We answered a couple other ones there as well. I answered the Prem one. Yeah, so like I said, I already answered the Prem one, My Voice Business there. Oh, question just came in here. So? What are your thoughts on purchasing third-party used short-tail switches and getting them recertified? So, being that you can't get the ST50 centers like on back order for up to 6 months, we do have an option if you were to say go to eBay and find an ST50 or ST100A or a ST1D or any of those switches. You can buy those switches, and then for a $750 fee, you can mail those switches into Mitel. They will test them, make sure there's no defects with them, and they will add that and then you can have that certified so that that switch is now part of your support contract. That's a great option right now, especially with switches being on back order and everything like that. Uh, so that's a good option. We have a lot of customers, that are looking at doing something like that, especially if you need like an ST500 right now, or for one of those, if you want one of those bigger switches. Those switches are having hardware component issues on the ST200 and 500. So those two are probably delayed over 6 months right now. So that would be a good option if you needed one of those. Buy them online, send them in for the $750 fee, and have them recertified and added back to your support contract. Let's see here. One other question that came in it says you mentioned My Voice Business will continue with on-prem. Did you say Mitel Connect license to be converted to My Voice Business? So that's what we're expecting them to announce, is some kind of a licensing conversion, because they've already done that for the contact center platform. If you have Mitel, or if you have the ShoreTel ECC contact center licensing, they are converting those licensing over to the My Voice Business contact center at no cost for customers. So if you're licensed for 100 contact center agents in ECC, they'll take those 100 licenses and they'll move them over to the MICC, which is the My Voice Business contact center platform, at no additional cost for customers. So for customers that want to stay on-prem with the contact center, they're moving those licenses over for free. So we are anticipating them them doing something around, My Voice Connect, moving over to my voice business, even if it's just moving your extension licensing. If you have 400 series phones, the phones might not be compatible. They haven't said if they're going to try to make those phones compatible. My guess is no. They're probably not going to make the 400 series phones compatible with My Voice Business, and the switches aren't going to be compatible with My Voice Business. So I'm hoping at least they'll convert the licensing over for you, and then you'll still have to buy some hardware and some phones, if you're looking to if you look to switch from Connect over to My Voice Business. Let's see here, question wise. Okay, answered that one. Answered that one. We do have customers so the switch, when you're buying third-party switches, we have customers that buy third-party phones all the time. It's not really an issue. The only issue really with buying used switches, somebody just asked if there's a drawback on that. If you're buying used switches, if you don't get them recertified, you can't open up support cases, on that hardware. So if you have a switch that's having an issue or something like that, if that switch hasn't been recertified and added to your warranty coverage, then you won't be able to open up support cases on that hardware. We have a couple customers say that's fine, and they buy used switches, they put them in. That used switch market is still going to be around past the end of sale of 2024, 2025 as well. Usually with most of these platforms, there's a used market, kind of gray market available for a number of years afterwards. So even if after the end of sale, you'll still be able to buy some of that hardware, through the used market. So you can still expand your system or something like that, between 2024. In 2029 or 2030. So you'll still be able to buy some of that hardware and phones through the aftermarket used market as well. All right, answer that one. Another question coming in: does My Voice Business run on a Windows server also? Yes, it does. Yeah, My Voice Business runs on a Windows server in a virtual environment in most cases. On that, actually, Mitel got rid of their physical servers. It has to be virtual now because they don't offer a physical hardware anymore for that. Are the 1600 series phones compatible with MICC and My Voice Business? Yes, they are. So the 6900 series phone was actually a phone designed by Mitel, and it was their first phone that they actually made work on all of their Mitel platforms. So the 6900 series phones work on all Mitel platforms, My Voice Business and MICC, and now with RingCentral as well. Here. Will Brightmetrics work on My Voice Business? I know it already works on MICC from a contact center platform. They're working on RingCentral. I know it works on Genesis, and they're working on it for 5.9 right now. But I don't think it's currently supported on My Voice Business. I could be wrong, but I haven't seen it listed anywhere in our conversations with them. I have a conversation. I have a quarterly call with Brightmetrics and their engineering team to talk roadmap and stuff like that. I'll ask them if it's on the roadmap, knowing that Connect is going away, and some of those customers are going to want to migrate to My Voice Business, I'm sure. So I'll ask them if that's something they're considering or not. For future updates on their platform. Question about the 400 series phones working on My Voice Business. My guess is no, because the 400 series phone is not a SIP phone. It was a short-tail design phone, and that's not a true SIP phone. So my guess is those phones are not going to be compatible on My Voice Business. Only the 6900 series phones. But that's just my guess at this point. But they haven't made, in the past couple of years, since those 400 series phones have been part of the Mitel family, they haven't made any effort to make those phones compatible with My Voice Business in the past. So I would assume no, that only the 6900 series phones are going to be My Voice Business compatible. All right, just working through. I think I got down to all of the questions. Message me, Brendan, if I missed a question in there. All right. So if you have additional questions, feel free to email us, call us. If you have a CSM or account manager or sales rep that you work with, feel free to get in contact with them. They can schedule a call with myself or one of the other engineers to kind of do a dive into your system. I can look at all the switches that you have in your system, what you're using the switches for, and recommend exact model replacements for switches, either physical and virtual. Kind of give you both options. We can talk about what does it look like to convert your PRIs over to SIP if you want to use virtual trunk switches and all those kind of things, those things. So get in touch with us. I'm happy to hop on a call with your account manager and review your system, review your switch usages. I could tell you how many analog devices you have, all that kind of stuff that you would need to, kind of get off the system if you wanted to go virtual as well. So reach out. We're here to help. We'll kind of guide you through the process. We're more than happy to look at your physical switch replacement option, and then also compare it against, and give you some cost analysis as to what it would look like to go to the cloud, as opposed to just replacing your switches on-prem. So we're doing that for a lot of customers right now, just to kind of figure out what's the best step, and then over the next 36 months for your business. Is it replacing and staying on-prem? Is it going to the cloud? Is it a kind of a mixture of both, and putting some remote locations in the cloud, keeping some on-prem? We're helping customers kind of look at all of that stuff right now and figuring out what the best option is for them. So thank you for joining today. If you have questions, like I said, reach out. We're here to help. Thank you. Have a good day.